Welcome to today's edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show podcast.
Welcome in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. It's Thanksgiving Eve. We are thankful for all of you and appreciate the fact that you are spending your Thanksgiving Eve with us. We know that many of you may be listening as you are driving or flying across the country, maybe even around the world, and we certainly appreciate all of you for hanging out with us, and we are fans of you and everything that you guys have allowed us to do so far this year. So Buck and I both very thankful for all of you. We want you to be safe while you are traveling around the country. I've seen some photos and videos from airports all over the country, and it's really kind of crazy to see how many of you are out and about. Buck is in New York. I am in Nashville. We'll be celebrating with our families close to home, and we can't wait to be able to do that. So we've got a lot to dive into. I'm going to open up phone lines, have a fun time with you guys on Thanksgiving Eve here. 800-282-2882 if you want to react to us. We're going to head out to Qatar, and I believe that is the official pronunciation that Fox has decided on, Buck.
I mean, for the Arabic speakers out there, it's Qatar. But we're Americans, so we call things whatever we want. It's not the University of Notre Dame. It is Notre Dame. Same idea.
They had a full article, I think, on in the New York Times that I read in the last couple of days about how the pronunciation of the country, there's like 7 or 8 different ways to pronounce it depending on what angle you go with. But we are going to Doha, which is the capital of Qatar, and we will talk to Alexi Lawless, who is a Fox soccer analyst, in advance of what should be a really fun Friday. I know many of you will be watching a lot of sports Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday as you eat your turkey, kick back. I actually, Buck, just came from my kids and a bunch of other neighborhood kids in a mass football game. They are all out of school, and first thing they want to do, my 8-year-old, my 12-year-old, and my 14-year-old are all a part of the same game. Big game breaking out. I'm sure many of your kids are out. Hopefully they're running around and having a fantastic time.
So I have cousins who had I grew up right in the middle of Manhattan. Right, I lived right in the concrete jungle, right in New York City. And we would go out. I had cousins that had a big place, like a house, like how people live in houses.
Yeah, you're still stunned by how people live in houses. Yeah,
they had a yard.
Yeah,
and
they had grass.
There were not like 15 or 20 floors of people living above and below them. They just had a house, and they had a big dog. But we used to. I remember we'd play basketball and even throw a football around, but we'd have to wear a jacket and tie for Thanksgiving and Christmas as a family, the little kids. You remember the days when you could just go out there, no stretching, no, now I'm like, oh man, I need like 4 minutes of like self shiatsu on my lower back before I could even pick something up off the ground. Back then, man, Thanksgiving, my cousins, we are all the same age basically, throwing around footballs, playing 4-on-4 basketball. It was America.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? I bet we have a lot of people who work in hospitals for Thanksgiving. And first of all, we appreciate everybody who doesn't get Thanksgiving off and has to work. We know that as many of you out there listening to us right now, keeping the country running. But the amount of people who come in with Thanksgiving family football injuries, very often older guys whose hamstrings give out, maybe the ACL doesn't stretch as well as it used to, massive numbers of injuries, such that, Buck, I told my boys, I was like, hey, when we finish the show today, I'll get back out. We'll play some football. It's like 65 degrees here in Nashville. Perfect day. But I said, Dad is all-time quarterback. Only thing I'm risking is the shoulder. I'm not getting out trying to run routes. I'm certainly not trying to keep up with my kids and chase them down and get the two-hand touch tags on. So Dad is like a hired gunman, just stands there with the old school quarterback, all-time QB, both sides. And gets blamed anytime he throws an interception or doesn't make a perfect throw by every kid on the field, who is always judging the QB. So that is what's going on here. You came out. We kind of live in a utopian, like kids run around. It's like Goonies every day in this neighborhood. And so I know many of you will be gearing up for those games. And I hope, again, as I mentioned, I know many of you are in your cars right now, traveling to see the grandparents, traveling to see the kids, everybody out and about.
40 million on the roads.
Woo.
A few more million in the planes, and a couple million on the buses and the trains. I mean, people are moving. This is the first Thanksgiving that we've had where you'll have about as many people going as pre-pandemic era.
Would
2019.
you prefer to travel on Thanksgiving or just stay home? What's your preferred? Now, you're just getting married, so the family dynamic can alter whether you want to travel or stay home.
This is the last solo with my family Thanksgiving that I will have, and Carrie is with her family. And then we're going to have to do Clay, you're going to have to advise me on this. Clay is going to be marriage consigliere, you know? Maybe like, Clay, how do we do this? Do we break down Christmas, Thanksgiving? Is that a one package? Is it two different things? Do you go all in one year? What about New Year's? You know, I got to work all these things out.
It makes a big difference, and I know those of you out there traveling right now, once you add kids to the travel routine, it makes a big difference. Because it's kind of easy to go back home when it's just you and the wife or just you and the girlfriend or whatever else. But when you start adding in multiple little people and their schedules, it gets way more complicated.
Yes, and I also will tell you, I mentioned this because I flew back into New York today. I'm here in New York City, Midtown, and there were a lot of people that were wearing masks, which is unsurprising. When I say a lot, maybe 10%. I'd say 10% of the flight, which to me is... But I've also noticed that there are now people who really get into, like, the N95 mask with the two rubber straps. I saw at least 4 or 5 people with this, where it is so tightly affixed to their head that you can see the line of the rubber in the back of their scalp and kind of a, you know, like they're just, it almost looks like a form of self-asphyxiation. And I feel very sorry for these people because clearly there's something wrong here. And this also brings us to why we were both, I mean, I don't know if anything was getting us more fired up yesterday on the political scene for sure than the Fauci
I'm
final
still so
press
angry
conference.
at that man.
Because if he came out and said that it really is, guys, you really don't have to do this stuff anymore. But I won't even, at this point, Clay, I won't even demand that he admit he was wrong about everything, that he's horrible, he's an evil smurf, he's the worst bureaucrat in the history of the country. I won't even get into it. He could just come out now and say, you don't have to do this craziness anymore. And I would at least give him a little bit of credit for not making people suffer through this madness anymore. I'm telling you, a lot of people walking around in New York still with masks on.
And you know what, Buck? That's such a good point because this is his final public event. If he had any semblance of decency, he would have come out and said, hey, you know what? We are very fortunate now in the third Thanksgiving. This is the third Thanksgiving since COVID hit. You really don't need, if you analyze your risk factors, to be wearing masks to Thanksgiving dinner. You really don't need to be doing testing. You can get back to 2019 era Thanksgiving. If you're sick and you don't feel well, hey, don't go to Thanksgiving. I just got a text message. My brother-in-law and my niece, they have the flu. Probably not going to hang out with them, just like you wouldn't have for the last 20 or 30 years of your life. Somebody's sick. You say, okay, we'll change plans. But if you feel well, you don't need to change your behavior just like you would have done back in 2019. Buck, this was his opportunity to in some way declare victory and embrace a return to normalcy. He didn't do it. And as a result, the 25 or 20% or 30% of broken brains out there, they're never going to go back to normal.
So I also want to point out that D.C., which is a political echo chamber, monoculture. I mean, D.C. is 95%. I think it is now officially more Democrat than San Francisco. Our nation's capital, everybody. More left-wing, more Democrat-heavy even than San Francisco. It might be within 1 or 2 percentage points of each other. Maybe San Fran has a point or two on it. But they're right alongside each other, okay? And we've all thought, San Francisco is the most left-wing major city in America for a long time. Clay, the D.C. public schools are requiring negative COVID tests for people to return after Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
so,
I saw this.
First of all, what a massive waste of time and resources. And I guess the idea here is, we're going to test you after Thanksgiving because that's so much more dangerous for COVID spread than everyone just living their lives and getting COVID all the time, which is happening anyway. Then this would be like, it would be like saying you're not allowed to come back to school until we give you a test for the common cold. And you say, okay, but I'm probably going to get a cold in 2 weeks, or, you can't stop this. So what is this even doing at this point? But I think these have now become rituals of the Democrat apparatus. This has become a thing that people do because it makes them feel good. The same way that no one really thinks that Florida is going to fall into the ocean because of climate change and that recycling is really saving anything. But they do it because, it's a ritual. It's like a religious ritual. You did to make you feel good. For people now, super tight N95 masks and totally unnecessary testing for COVID is also a ritual.
I'm glad you brought that up, too. I'm reading right now, right before we came on the show. I couldn't believe that this is out there, but Washington Post headline. We've been telling people this for quite some time. Vaccinated people now make up a majority of COVID deaths. Subheadline. It's no longer a pandemic of the unvaccinated. I'm reading from the Washington Post. For the first time, a majority of Americans dying from coronavirus received at least the primary series of the vaccine. 58% of coronavirus deaths in August were people who were vaccinated or boosted. This is pretty, it's pretty significant. And so, again, we've been telling you this was the case for some time. But when you had Ashish Jha yesterday at the White House saying, hey, if you get your COVID booster, you won't die of COVID, that's a lie. Even the Washington Post now is saying, and this was back in August, I'm sure the numbers are even more substantial now, unfortunately. And we should mention, many of these people are dying with COVID. They are wildly unhealthy. You're dying with 3-4 comorbidities along the way, and COVID is one of them. It's not COVID exclusively, but it does continue to puncture this public health argument they've made where if you get the COVID shot or you get your boosters, it's just a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's not true.
Well, it hasn't been true for a long time, and what you're going to see is they just slow roll the data and the analysis of it and the distribution of the obvious facts or the obvious conclusions that come from all of this until it is more palatable to their audience, right? The Washington Post could have said this 6 months ago.
Correct.
Their whole thing about, for the first time, that's not true. That hasn't been true in a lot of places across the country since last winter when the pandemic was having yet another phase. First of all, it's not even a pandemic anymore. Unless, Clay, excuse me, sir, unless it comes to, like, emergency powers and maybe student loans.
Which that won't ever go away.
Then apparently it's an emergency forever, which we should talk about. Should talk about this one. Just deferring the loans again, tens of billions of dollars because Biden feels like it. Folks, we're thankful for a lot, but the poor governance of the Biden administration is not one of those things. We'll talk about both. The things we're thankful for and the things we wish weren't so today on the show. Millions of businesses have benefited from the convenience of having Stamps.com services. This is a one-stop website that makes it possible for you to ship boxes and letters, literally anything you need delivered. They give you access to both USPS and UPS services, and their pricing discount on shipping is high. It can be as much as 85% off. For regular mail, you can print stamps, weigh packages, and make it so you never have to stand in line at the post office again. For shipping via UPS, the Stamps.com website lets you schedule pickups of every last box you need to ship. This holiday season, trade late nights for silent nights. Get started with Stamps.com today. Sign up with our promo code Clay and Buck for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter code Clay and Buck.
They're here to shed light on the truth every day. Clay, Travis, and Buck Sexton.
Welcome back in. Thanksgiving Eve edition, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show. As I continue to say, we are very thankful for all of you and hope that you and your families have fantastic Thanksgivings and travel safely to wherever you may be going to meet with those friends and family. We talked some about the shooting out in Colorado and the immediate way that it was politicized. Everybody out there decided, the right-wingers are to blame for this shooting that took place at a gay club. And, again, credit to the people in that club who managed to keep that shooting from continuing. There are many heroes there. But if you turned on CNN, if you turned on MSNBC, if you read the New York Times, the Washington Post, the usual suspects in PR, they all said, Fox News is to blame, conservative talk radio is to blame, right-wing influential figures have blood on their hands. Then something interesting happened late last evening. I was sitting around watching the newest version of the Santa Claus, Buck. My boys are obsessed. You watched the Santa Claus back in the day, the Tim Allen Santa Claus-based movie, or was that after your time?
You're really putting me on the spot here, Chief. I have never seen the Santa Claus. Should I see this movie?
Save it for the kids. When you and Carrie have kids, they will probably love the Santa Claus. Tim Allen, spoiler alert, is Santa Claus. And there's a new Disney Plus special that's out with Tim Allen where they're counting down till Christmas. I know it's the day before Thanksgiving, but my boys are obsessed with Christmas already.
What is the... Well, you know what? We'll come back to Christmas movies and Thanksgiving movies later.
So I'm watching this. We'll talk about it in a sec. But I'm watching this when, out of nowhere... on my phone pops up a news alert. And that news alert lets me know that the shooter is actually in court filings claiming to be transgender. Here is CNN, cut 20, reacting to the news late last evening that, wait a minute, the shooter might not have been some Tucker Carlson watching MAGA enthusiast Donald Trump supporter, might have actually been also transgender. Listen.
Attorneys for the accused shooter, Anderson Lee Aldrich, say in new court filings tonight that the suspect now identifies as non-binary. In a footnote to a motion asserting legal privileges, the public defenders say, quote, Anderson Aldrich is non-binary. They use they, them pronouns, and for the purposes of all formal filings will be addressed as Mix Aldrich. So, in other words, not Mr. or Ms. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, that's not anything that we had heard from his background. You know, people have been looking into his background. And I don't know if anybody here, are you guys lawyers? I mean, you know, I don't know if, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, that's what he's now saying.
I also, a few things here. One is, I believe the individual here is considered non-binary, not transgender, right? Meaning in between, it's not someone who is going from female to male, but believes...
you may be right about that. I don't... So I get all confused on this terminology,
Clay,
frankly.
Everybody gets... You know,
so
obviously.
What is non-binary versus transgender?
So non-binary means neither quite fully on the female side of the spectrum or the male side of the spectrum. Cisgender would be if you were one or the other, also known as gender. If you're male or female, that is cisgender. Non-binary is you're in some middle ground between the two genders. So a couple of interesting things that this brings up. I mean, one is just, and look, I understand, right? I mean, I even saw people saying, well, we shouldn't, this isn't like some kind of a gotcha moment. Hold on a second. People on the right were the ones who were saying, including you and me, what happened in Colorado Springs is horrific. We should come together and grieve as a community. We should show support to the human beings, the men and women and LGBTQ individuals who are there. The Army veteran who took down the shooter should be praised for being a hero. That's how we wanted to talk about this and cover this incident. And if there's something, there were, by the way, red flag laws in Colorado, didn't stop this individual. There are some security and procedural issues to discuss to try to prevent such a horrific thing from happening in the future. We're not going to stop all of these, as we know, but we can talk about how we might be able to stop it and discuss that in a serious and sober-minded way. It was the Democrats who were saying this is Lauren Boebert's fault. It was the Democrats who were saying this is Tucker Carlson's fault. They did this right away. And so, if you are at a funeral and someone yells at you that you are responsible for the death of the person that is being mourned, you're going to defend yourself, right? You're going to say, I didn't do, So I think it creates this unfair standard where now we're being told, hey, guys, let's not, let's focus on the issues at hand here, not get too deep into the pushback to the media. No, I'm sorry. They weaponized the narrative. It was wrong. They jumped to a conclusion that fit and they slandered people. And now what was fascinating, you might have seen this, Clay, on social media. Initially it was, well, clearly this person, Aldrich, clearly this person's just doing this as some kind of a troll defense of the court.
Or defense. Yeah.
Or some kind of defense. Not true. This individual wanted to change his name at the age of 16. This stretches back 4 years. This was not something that they stumbled upon in this moment. And I also think it raises issues. Why should the court accede to this? Why should as far as the court is concerned, there are men, there are women, there are differences in law that affect men and women. And the claim that somebody has to be referred to by different pronouns, in fact, plural pronouns, I really mean this. The New York Times has even had this discussion in the past. Using plural pronouns is grammatically incorrect and confusing.
Yes.
And in a court situation, to be confusing the jury with plural pronouns when an individual committed a heinous act is confusing. If I were, let me give it, sorry, I'm just obviously fired up about this, Clay. If I were accused of a serious crime, and I kept saying, you can't refer to me as the defendant. You have to refer to me as the victim, because that's how I identify. I identify as a victim. You say, well, no, of course not. That's going to confuse the jury. You don't get to make up the language that other people in a court of law use to discuss a legal proceeding. I got big problems with that.
No, I think you're 100% right about this. And from a legal perspective, you can imagine how the jury could be confused in a big way. It's actually a tremendous advantage to the defendant, because every time you refer to the defendant, if you say they, it makes people think that more than one person was involved in a crime, right? So if you say they did this shooting, then my initial response is, like, who are the shooters, plural, directly, and I'm sure most people sitting on a jury would be. And also, if you're reading the transcripts as a lawyer, which I used to have to do, when you're using a plural, you are constantly thinking in your head, okay, wait a minute, did I miss something here? Is this multiple people who were involved? Is this one person who was involved? All of it's crazy. And I think it also ties in with what we said on this program, which is this is unfortunately just further evidence of the mental illness that I believe is likely involved in the behavior of this shooter.
That's another issue that I have from a pure legal and justice system perspective on this one. Every time, to your point, Clay, yes, it could be they. So were there multiple shooters? It's confusing, as you just discussed. Absolutely true. But also, it raises this idea that there is perhaps a collective responsibility. They did this terrible thing, but, they have a long history. Well, who is they exactly, right? It diffuses responsibility for the individual acts. And I would say even, in some ways is also a stealth, I'm just going to say it, a stealth mental health defense. The jury's going to be hearing all the time about this person who insists on being called they. If I'm a juror, I'm sitting there saying, okay, this person is mentally unbalanced. That's what's going to happen. So it's a way of introducing a sort of insanity defense without actually doing that, because the person also, what was it? What was the preferred, not Mr. or Mrs., but
MX.
MX?
MX.
Right. No, I know. I'm saying.
I don't even know how you pronounce it.
I mean, if I went into a court of law and I wanted them to refer to me, everyone knows, we could all fill in the blanks here. This is crazy stuff that's going on, but also the fact that they lied about this right away and put this on specific individuals. I'm just going to say this. AOC, wasn't she the one who called out?
She went
Boebert?
right after Boebert. Yeah.
AOC, if she has a shred of honor or integrity, should publicly apologize to Congresswoman Boebert. This is not just a political partisan. That is actually the case here. If she will not apologize, she is a person of no honor or decency.
And we know, by the way, that she will not apologize because she does have no honor or decency. Worse than that, even than her failure to apologize, Buck. None of these people who jumped to conclusions about the motivations of the shooter are going to be held accountable by the media either. Right? All these people who went on CNN and MSNBC and attacked Fox News and attacked Congresswoman Boebert and went after all the different right-wing, as they describe it, commentators, there are no consequences now that they are proven wrong. I find it hard to believe that this shooter is a Tucker Carlson viewer or a Daily Wire subscriber or a Clay and Buck listener. And yet that is what they are going to try to ascribe as the motivation. They're not going to have to own the fact that they were wrong.
They tried to use this shooting to further leverage the narrative that Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter is dangerous and leading to people dying. I mean, everything they could fit this into, they did. And look, there's a reason why Rush's concept of the drive-by media is so accurate and so timeless, because when you think about it in that context, the media just... they unleash this devastation of lies, and they just speed off until the next one. No accountability whatsoever. So we finally have more information about this. We'll continue to follow this one closely. Switching gears, my friends, if your business has 5 to 500 employees and you managed your way through the pandemic and this recession we're already in, you could be eligible to receive a payroll tax rebate of up to $26,000 per employee. This isn't a loan. There's no payback. It's a refund of your taxes. How do you get your business this refund money? Go to getrefunds.com. Their tax attorneys are specialists in this little-known payroll tax refund program. They do all the work with no charge up front and simply share a percentage of the cash they get for you. Businesses of all types can qualify, including those who took PPP, nonprofits, even those that had an increase in sales. The team at getrefunds.com has already returned over $1 billion to businesses, and they can help you as well. Just go to getrefunds.com, click on Qualify Me, and answer a few questions. This payroll tax refund is only available for a limited amount of time. Don't miss out. Go to getrefunds.com. That's getrefunds.com. No risk, high reward.
The torch of truth, passed and still lit every day. The Clay, Travis, and Buck Sexton Show.
Welcome back in. Clay, Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Thanksgiving Eve. We are headed now down to Qatar. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, or at least as the pronunciation has been agreed to be joined by Fox soccer analyst Alexi Lawless. They are 8 hours ahead of us. It is almost Thanksgiving Day, I guess, in Qatar. And Alexi, first of all, thanks for making the time for us. I know it's an absolute crazy zoo over there with all the games going on. And I want to start with this question. U.S. is up 1-0. When you see the play as a former defenseman for the U.S. men's soccer team, when you see the play of Walker Zimmerman and the foul that he committed that led to a penalty kick, your immediate reaction was to say or think what?
Well, something I can't say on the radio because I am an avid listener to your show, and I know you have a level of decorum here. By the way, I do. I subscribe. I listen to it every day. This morning on the Peloton here in the hotel in Qatar, in Doha here, I was listening to the show. So I am a huge fan of both of you guys and of this show. When I saw that, I was disappointed. I was angry. And you know, I pictured myself on the field, and look, mistakes happen in sports, mistakes happens in life, and it's how you recover from them. So ultimately, the U.S. ties Wales 1-1. And, you know, I know that Buck was having some fun at Wales' expense. You know, Buck should know that.
I mean, it's kind of, come on, it's kind of fair. Like, how many people even know that Wales is its own country?
Well, I understand that, but you know, they are a small country, but they are a hardy country. And look, I agree with you. The U.S. should have beaten Wales, and so you're dropping points there. And in the way that it happened with Walker Zimmerman making that what amounts to a stupid foul, and it shouldn't be done at any level, especially for a professional. And it's big in a World Cup. However, there's a couple of games to play here, including this huge one on Black Friday against England, our friends England. So there is plenty to play for when it comes to the World Cup. And whether you're into soccer or whether you're not into soccer, this is an opportunity to sit down and celebrate what I feel is the greatest country in the world. There's very few things in our life and our world today that bring us together, and maybe soccer is one of them.
So, Alexi, I'm going to put this out there, just in all fairness, right? It's not looking good for our guys on Friday. I know enough about soccer, mostly from playing FIFA on PlayStation, but I know enough about the English team's rankings and the American team's rankings. It's not looking great for us, but, you know, we did win in 1776, so we got that going for us, which is nice. Iran, though, we're going to be playing Iran. Tell me, as somebody who knows this U.S. national team inside and out, I don't care if we are playing Iran in shuffleboard, if we're playing Iran in tiddlywings, you name it, America has to win. Are we going to win that match?
Well, we are going to have to win in order to advance. So you're absolutely right, Buck. This is going to be a huge game. And look, as you know, sports sometimes mirrors culture and society and politics and all those different things. And all of that is going to be on display with Iran, which we have a long history from. Look, I grew up in the 70s and 80s and what Iran represented to America and to Americans. And so that will be part of the narrative. Ultimately, there's 3 points. So, and to your point, it doesn't matter whether it's men's, women's, co-ed, naked. If we're playing Iran, I want to win. And we need to win this game in order to go on, I think, because to your point, who knows what's going to happen against England? They are a better team. Doesn't mean the U.S. can't get a point or get a win over there. I believe that this is a good U.S. team that can do some big things, and this would be huge if they were able to beat England. But no matter what, that third game, you're going to have to beat Iran.
Okay, so that's what a lot of people out there if they don't follow this closely, we've got England, Wales, the United States, and Iran in a group. And if we had beaten Wales, we would have been in incredible shape to advance because 2 teams advance. Do you see this coming down to goal differential, in which case we're going to be watching on Friday, everybody recovering from Thanksgiving meals, kicking the feet up, watching. Do you feel like even if we lose to England, it's desperately important to keep it close because goal differential may well decide who advances to the knockout round?
You're absolutely right. It is important that we keep it close, but I do feel that this has the opportunity and the makings of something historic. And I know it's not assured, but this is a young team. It's the second youngest team in the tournament. I think they have not just a responsibility that they feel, but also an opportunity to do some big things and to get, whether it's people like yourselves or anybody else is listening out there, to at least step into the soccer tent. Because once you get in there, it's warm, it is welcoming, and guess what? It is American. We do have an American soccer culture. It is vibrant, it is passionate, it is discerning, it is growing, and don't you dare apologize for it because it is something that's very, very special and unique in the soccer world out there. But that has to come out and manifest on the play on the field, especially when it comes to our men's team. Our women's team, they kick ass, as we know, and win all the time. The men's team has to step up, and this would be a huge, huge moment in this World Cup if they were able to get that result against England on Black Friday and then parlay that into a great result against Iran and get out of the group.
So we're speaking to Alexi Lawless, Fox soccer analyst, and also a man who really popularized the bright red goatee of the 1990s, if I recall. Wasn't that you? I remember this, man. You were rocking. That goatee was like a 10 out of 10 goatee. You were not messing around. I feel like I've seen you on TV. It's not there anymore. How are things out in Qatar, man? Or Qatar? How's it going? You're actually in country right now. There's been, some news stories about there was like a beer ban, but not really. But how is it doing a World Cup there?
I can assure you that I have never once in the now couple of weeks that I've been here, nor the other previous trips that I've taken, had a problem finding alcohol. Believe me. Sometimes
that doesn't surprise me at all.
Going forward.
Yeah.
But we have this kick-ass set when it comes to our Fox Soccer set here down at what's called the Corniche, which is down on the water. The people here have been incredible. It is a really, really interesting, like you said, World Cup in that there's this Brigadoonish type of experience where everybody is in the same place. Nobody travels anywhere. All the teams, all the stadiums are here, and we're gonna blow it out on Fox. And we have this incredible set here that has multiple levels and multiple stages, and people come to it like it is part of the star of the show down here, and it just augments all of the coverage that we are bringing. And part of our job is not just to talk about the soccer, but to talk about this country and this culture and to make that part of the storytelling that we're doing.
My understanding, by the way, I want all of you to watch the U.S. and Alexi and Stu and all the crew that's out there. Jenny Taft, fantastic job they're doing. But also, I will be up in Columbus for this Ohio State-Michigan game, which is going to be huge. And my understanding is that part of our pregame show, we're actually going to be integrating some of you guys. It's my understanding. It might not be 100% accurate. As a part of the World Cup to have you guys talking college football and maybe a little bit of NFL also. So for people out there, Alexi, who don't know this U.S. men's soccer team. You mentioned how young they are. You played in the World Cup back in 1992 in the United States. The first time that you play in a World Cup match as a young guy, it feels like what? First part of the question. Second aspect here, how much more comfortable and better did you play in game 2, having just gotten the butterflies in some extent out in that first ever World Cup match?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you realize a dream, there is a moment of and the sooner you get over it, the better off you are going to be when you recognize it's the game that you've been playing all along. Mine was way back in the 1900s before you guys were born, back in 1994, summer 94. Like you said, Buck, a lot of hair. Never has so much been done with a modicum of talent and a lot of hair, whether it was the goatee or the hair on top of my head. I wish I could still grow it. I've cleaned up on the outside, but I'm still a mess on the inside. But then you walk out on that field, and in my case, at that point, it was actually in Pontiac at the Pontiac Silverdome. Rest in peace to Pontiac Silverdome. I grew up in Detroit, so 15 minutes outside of where I grew up, walking on that field and realizing a dream. Now, this U.S. team has already done that, right? So now they understand what the World Cup is. Now, on Friday, when they walk out against England, it's not just with the realization that they're representing their country, but it's also with the understanding that there's a competition here, and you got to figure it out very, very quickly against a very, very good team. But look, there's nothing like it when you walk out on that field, when you put your hand over your heart, you put that shirt on, you sing that song. For me, there is nothing else like it. And if I could, I would do anything to get back it.
All right, Alexi Lawless of Fox Soccer. And Alexi, let's hope that U.S., first of all, have a happy Thanksgiving out there. I know you're abroad right now, and pass along the same for us to all the American players out there. We're thinking about them, and we appreciate you joining us, and let's hope we get a W on Friday. I will actually watch this sports competition.
Awesome. I love it. I love what you guys do. So keep on doing it, and make sure that you give me something for when I'm on the Peloton sweating my ass off.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much.
That's the plan. Alexi is a fantastic guy, Buck. I told you he listens to the show, and he's a great American soccer hero. So
I remember because I was playing soccer in high school back when he was on that national team or right around then. And he was one of the first guys, I think, to really popularize the U.S. men's national team of that era. You know, he was a well-known guy.
Oh, no doubt.
As men's soccer was becoming more of a thing here. This is really, I think that was even pre-MLS, or maybe the MLS had just gotten going.
I think the MLS built out, I think I said 92, it was 94.
Right.
That was the launching point for the MLS, was the amount of attention that we had hosting. And remember, we're hosting to a large extent the World Cup in 26, which is why whatever experience these guys get now hopefully could translate 4 years from now when we host it basically in the United States. North America does.
Yeah. But, that Argentinian team, which is supposed to be one of the best in the world, they got caught flat-footed, folks. They were a little slow in the third, fourth quarter, and Saudi Arabia beat them. So I know it would be international shipping, Clay, but maybe we could get them a little bit of a boost, a little bit of extra energy to help push them through.
Very well played. In
the final quarters of their match, so they wouldn't lose to Saudi Arabia, supposed to be Argentina, the best in the world. I think that they could have used some chalk. Maybe the Saudis had a little chalk. I don't know if it's banned there or not, but they probably could use some chalk. This is phenomenal stuff, friends. It's spelled CHOQ. They're herbal supplements that just help you get the focus, energy, and drive to get through your day. Chalk put years into researching the right ingredients for your particular needs. Case in point, men in this country have suffered from a loss of testosterone, down some 50% over the last 50 years. And women have all these hormonal changes that come from the difference in diet and the day-to-day stresses of life. Male and female vitality stacks from Chalk provide key nutrients in a daily supplement that address these issues and more. So you can restore energy and increase your focus. Make sure you're energized all day long. Make sure you don't start dragging in the fourth quarter, if you know what I mean. Right now, you can save 35% off any Chalk subscription for life when you use my name, Buck, in the purchase process. That's CHOQ.com. Use the name Buck. You'll get 35% off for life. You can cancel your subscription at any time with zero penalties. Go check it out today. Get that energy, drive, and focus back. And even for the guys out there, boost your testosterone a bit with CHOQ. That's Chalk. And we use Buck in your checkout process. You get 35% off.
Subscribe to CNB 24/7 and never miss a minute of Clay and Buck while getting behind-the-scene access to special content for members only.
We are thankful for all of you, whether you're involved with this show directly for work or whether you are listening as maybe you are traveling around the country in what is likely to be the most frenzied Thanksgiving since all the way back in 2019, which feels like a very long time ago. This is the third Thanksgiving we have had since COVID began, and it feels like, even for people with broken brains, the vast majority of Americans are back to a normal Thanksgiving holiday. I just went down during the commercial break to make sure that my kids had managed to make it through their Thanksgiving Eve football game without anybody getting really severely injured or any major fights breaking out. The Travis boys managed to stay healthy.
Are they playing
Buck,
tackle
you traveled
football?
back to New York City.
Are your kids old enough where they play tackle football yet?
My sixth grader played official tackle football, but I have mandated that they can only play touch in the neighborhood because my 8-year-old's playing too. So if you're 15, about to be 15-year-olds tackling the 8-year-old, that's a recipe for disaster.
But how do you feel about the young Travis boys playing like high school tackle football?
If they want to play, they can play. I'm not going to stop them from doing it. Like I said, my sixth grader played first year ever, played flag football before, but this year in middle school, he played tackle football. Now, it was against other sixth graders, but, Buck, as you well remember, sometimes sixth and seventh graders, I should say, the kid who hits puberty is a monster out there on the field, right? If you hit puberty at 12 or 13 earlier, full puberty than other people, you got a mustache, you might be 6 foot tall out there compared to a lot of other kids that are like 5'4". So that was sometimes an issue. At one point, my kid said, it's hard to tackle that kid. He's got a mustache, Dad. And I was like, well, that's an argument that you can make when you hit that borderline puberty or non-puberty age for the kids. Everybody out there who's either played or coached in that age range knows exactly what I'm talking about. What was the travel for you like, by the way? You came back from Florida. You're back in New York today. Was it frenzied at the airports? I understand it's like kind of crazy everywhere right now.
Yeah, I was up. I was there at 5 a.m. It was already like long security lines, and that's pretty much I was taking the earliest possible flight, so you're going to see a lot of that going on. But I do think now people are really everybody who's going to think normally about traveling in the era of post-COVID America. I think they're there. Maybe some people will start to chill out a little bit going forward. But look, it's good because we really haven't had, even last Thanksgiving. Last Thanksgiving wasn't a normal Thanksgiving, folks. We all remember there was the winter of death and all this stuff, and the Biden administration was hammering on how you better get the shot, and they had pushed the vaccine mandate, and there were vaccine cards, and those vaccine cards, the dumbest thing. People will look back, historians will look back, and they'll be like, wait, you carry a little piece of paper that says you got a shot that doesn't even stop you from giving the virus to other people. Like, what was this all about? But it felt pretty normal today out there traveling. Airline attendants did have masks on, however, on my flight. The attendants.
Really?
Yeah, I remember some of those Siberian prison guards. I remember what they were like 35,000 feet in the sky. I have not forgotten. I have not forgiven.
I'm concerned. You mentioned earlier in the show that this is crazy, that kids going back to public school in Washington, D.C. have to have a negative COVID test in order to return to school. And yesterday we played you the audio of Dr. Fauci saying you should take a COVID test before you go to your Thanksgiving dinner. And Dr. Ja lied and said if you get the COVID booster, you won't die of COVID. The Washington Post today, to their credit, has an article up saying actually nearly 60% of people dying with COVID have had either the COVID shots or COVID boosters. But I'm concerned, when you look at Los Angeles and they're talking about bringing masks back, that a lot of you out there listening to us in blue cities, even if you're in a red state, may have things to worry about if the numbers start to tick up on COVID. And certainly what we're seeing, unfortunately, Buck, especially for young kids, is a lot of them were so isolated from other kids that they didn't get the usual viruses and illnesses that young kids. I mean, that's a phrase, snot-nosed kid, for a reason. There's almost always, if you've got young kids, a little cold or a little virus that they're working through to develop their immune systems. And unfortunately, what you're seeing so far, this early part as we move towards the winter, is a lot of those kids are getting RSV or they're getting the flu, and that's actually more dangerous, unfortunately, to truly young children than COVID has been, and the way we treated them for COVID made them more likely to get the more serious illness.
And there's now been a run on a bunch of medications, antibiotics for children. I think they're even starting to report on a shortage of children's Tylenol, if I saw that right.
I saw that. I saw Meghan McCain tweet that out earlier today, that it's hard to find.
This is, I'll just note, if we do have a really bad upper respiratory virus season that affects children, and so across the board now, flu and RSV and COVID, all these things, they're not going to want to tell you this until next summer, but eventually it will come out that not allowing children to live normal lives and be exposed to the normal upper respiratory infections that they come into contact with on a regular basis made them effectively short-term immunocompromised. I mean, I do believe that will eventually come out. Not immunocompromised in a severe way, but that they just didn't have immunity against some of these things, so they're getting hit particularly hard because of the way that we separated children, didn't let them live their lives, kept them away. You know, we got to remember, there are some people, we don't hear about this anymore, there's some people who didn't let their kids see other kids for 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years. You know, and they happen to live in New York, D.C., L.A., few other places, but they were keeping the kids locked away almost like they're trying to have them live in a bubble.
And they were the same people who took pictures of their kids getting COVID shots that were completely worthless and put it on social media to be social justice warriors and brag about that. I got to correct something I said earlier in the show, Buck, and this is maybe a major flaw in our holiday power rankings. Neither one of us ranked New Year's Eve.
Oh, I am anti New Year's Eve.
Oh, so you considered and rejected ranking New Year's Eve.
Sir, we have a whole conversation. New Year's Eve is the most stressful, overrated, annoying holiday. I will take National Pancake Day over New Year's Eve. I will find, those random holidays that they make up.
And you're saying this, though, even this surprises me because you've been a single guy for a long time, so you could theoretically have celebrated New Year's Eve. Now, for parents like me, I'm at that. I've been in several different years where I've been like, hey, let me try to trick my kids. We'll watch the New Year's ball drop from Times Square on the Eastern time zone. I can get my kids to go to bed earlier.
Let me tell you little dispatches from recently, single man life, now engaged, obviously. So I'm out of that game, thank God. But what it used to be like every year for my adult life, 18 to 39, it's New Year's Eve. Oh, okay. How do we make this the most amazing night ever? And then you go out and everyone gets super drunk. They try to go to as many parties as they can, and it's never really what you want it to be. Then you get a little older, right? That's in your 20s. Maybe into your 30s. It's like, oh, there's all these parties. I'm going to all these parties. And, you're going to have that moment where, you meet the beautiful stranger, you make out at midnight, and you get married and have 5 beautiful kids. Doesn't work that way. Everyone's like, I'm so drunk. They're all, stumbling over each other. There's always someone who's yelling, I'm stuck in line. I can't get in. And everyone's all upset. It's a total mess. And then you get a little older, and you're like, you know what? I'm not really going to do this New Year's Eve thing anymore. I'm not really going to do it. And then about 3 weeks before it's New Year's Eve, maybe a month before, people start texting you, hey, we're going to do something, right? And the peer pressure starts getting ratcheted up. You try to opt out. It gets ratcheted up. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to, that super expensive restaurant where they're going to give me a prefix menu with the worst, cheapest food they have and the worst service imaginable. And they're going to usher us in like cattle and usher us out in scheduled seating. And the restaurant could care less about the whole thing. And you're in for in New York City, Clay, a crappy restaurant's going to cost you $200 on New Year's Eve per person. I mean, you go to a hotel in Miami. I've been in Miami last few New Year's Eves. You go to a place that's just okay, $500 a person on New Year's Eve. It's crazy. I hate it.
It's a great night for restaurants. I would argue with you that New Year's Eve, heading into New Year's itself, and I'm curious if you would agree with this, number one night for women to be dressed up in fancy dresses, ready to go out, have a great time, that ends with them crying. I can't tell you the number of times. Can't tell you, Buck, the number of times that I have either been with or been out on New Year's Eve. Everybody's in a great mood. especially if you're single.
You got 25-year-olds
20s
who look like they're at their prom or something. And they're sitting outside of the booming music at some New Year's Eve party, and the mascara. They're like, I just don't understand why he doesn't do the thing that he does.
It is the number one night for girls to cry about their boyfriends or their significant others or the guy that they thought was going to be their boyfriend that it didn't work out. I can't tell you the number of times they're often, they got the fancy shoes that they're just done with. They got them in their hand. To your point, mascara running down the cheeks, fancy dress.
One of the heels broken on the shoes, so they're walking around barefoot in New York City streets. Not advisable.
Hair is a wreck. It inevitably starts to rain. It is like the number one night for single women tears.
Wait, but hold on.
There's not even a close second.
I feel so. Like, how are you not? You're coming over to my side on this one, Chief. Which is New Year's Eve is the worst holiday.
Well, no, I didn't even think about New Year's Eve in my rankings, but I was like, I thought maybe you as a long-term single guy might have it in your top 5.
No. It's very. It's not good. And honestly, if there's one person you want to do the midnight kiss with, you just want to hang out with that person. You don't want to wait till midnight. So why are you going to some big party? I think the whole thing is it's a scam. I don't know if it was made up to sell Hallmark cards or something. Someone tell me what the conspiracy is behind it. But I think New Year's Eve is a scam and a half. And look, how do you have a great New Year's Eve? Hang out with the people that you like the most, your family, your friends, whatever, in a mellow setting, maybe have a glass of champagne or, a glass of whiskey or something, have a good meal, watch the ball drop on TV and go, great, tomorrow's January 1st. Let's get after it.
I will tell a lot of guys out there listening and some women as well, the college football playoff games are on New Year's Eve tonight, this year. So on December 31st, starting about 4 o'clock Eastern, all the way up through the official New Year, right now, I've got guys panicked right now because they hadn't done the math in their head, and they got wives or they got girlfriends, and they were supposed to plan something, and now all they want to do is just sit back, have a couple of beers, watch college football playoff. Direct overlap with New Year's Eve. Buck, they tried to brand this when they expanded to the 4-team college football playoff. They said, hey, we're going to make New Year's Eve synonymous with college football. Biggest disaster schedule ever. Because what they didn't realize was a lot of people have big plans, and they created, I think, more fights relating to sports over these games going on head-to-head than they ever contemplated would happen.
My thing is, I do love eating out, and I love going. That's my way of experiencing different cities and towns all across America. I just want to, what's the best food they've got here? So I love going out to eat. And New Year's Eve is literally the worst night of the year to go out to eat. It is the worst night. You're getting everything they're doing everywhere as a prefix menu. I never want a prefix menu. I'm at a restaurant. If I was going to prepare and only have one set of food, I would do it at home. They triple charge you in most places. So for eating out, it's the worst night. And it's just amateur night, man. It's like the best nights you have are the ones where you're not trying to have the best night. And New Year's Eve, it concentrates all that. Oh, what are you going to do on New Year's Eve? Go to sleep early, wake up the next day, and just keep living my life. Make a resolution.
I think that's why all the girls, Buck, end up crying outside because they built it up into a momentous occasion, and instead, whatever douchebag guy they're dating that they thought was going to be the man of their dreams proves that he's a douchebag, and they're just like, why did I ever think that this was going to be different?
A lot of people think they're going to they think the proposal's going to happen.
Oh, the ring.
Right at midnight,
big
the resolution,
night,
whatever.
Yeah.
And, the guy's actually 7 fireballs in watching Clay's favorite SEC football team lose to some other football team. He is not thinking about that diamond ring, ladies. I just got news for you.
No doubt. That's true.
Yeah, that's how it happens. Look, this is a week for Black Friday sales events, as you know, and that includes books. How about that? Books are really important. The publishers of the famous Tuttle Twins series have their own Black Friday deal in place. You want to get in on this? These books are must-haves for every American home. This week, they're having the biggest deal they've ever done. They've got a bundle that includes all the children's books, activity books, and audiobooks, guidebooks, parent guides, all for 75% off the normal price. Plus, there's a mega bundle that also includes all their other book bundles, too. It has the teen, toddler, and history bundles. They make the perfect gift for all the kids in your life. Give something that'll make a real difference in their education. Go to TuttleRadio.com to access this special deal. That's TuttleRadio.com for a whopping 75% off both of these bundles. It's a great gift for the holiday. That's TUTTLE, TuttleRadio.com.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Chalk up a win for Team Reality.